There's Dana Perino and Greg Gutfeld. It's 9 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. New video tonight emerging of the vicious killer who blew himself up and murdered 22 and wounded dozens more Monday night in Manchester, England. A neighbor shot this footage of Salman Abedi last July. This video coming out as the British government has expressed outrage and blame towards America for leaks in the investigation. For more, let's bring in Chief White House correspondent John Roberts, live from Italy, where the president is tonight. John?
Kimberly, good evening to you. You know, the plague of leaks at U.S. agencies took a troubling new turn today when police in the U.K. said they were going to stop sharing intelligence and evidence with their U.S. counterparts because of the plague of leaks that have been coming out here, at least in the United States, about the Manchester bombing. They were infuriated in the UK when the name of the bomber was released in the United States before they were ready to release it. And then the fact that these photographs of bomb evidence showed up in the New York Times really had them basically just hit the roof. So Theresa May, when she came to NATO today, said that she was going to speak with President Trump about the intelligence sharing that's going on between the U.S. and the UK. Listen here.
So that partnership is built on trust, and part of that trust is knowing that intelligence can be shared confidently. And I will be making clear to President Trump today that intelligence that is shared between law enforcement agencies must remain secure.
Yeah, for his part, the president really was incensed about all of this. He's been complaining about it for a long time, releasing a statement saying, quote, "The leaks of sensitive information pose a grave threat to our national security. I am asking the Department of Justice and other relevant agencies to launch a complete review of this matter. And if appropriate, the culprit should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Now, when he was addressing the NATO summit earlier today, President Trump really kind of appealed to the other 27 member nations of the alliance to throw in more on the issue of terrorism than they have in the past and become full partners in going after ISIS and the terrorism that it inspires. Listen to what the president said.
All people who cherish life must unite in finding, exposing, and removing these killers and extremists. And yes, losers. They are losers. Wherever they exist in our societies, we must drive them out and never, ever let them back in.
Now, NATO is taking more steps in terms of counterterrorism. They're creating a counterterrorism unit and putting in place a single person who will coordinate that unit. But they were very clear in a communique today, Kimberly, saying that they are not at the point where they're going to engage in military action as an alliance, or at least maybe even the individual member nations against ISIS. But the president would like to see them do that. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, as he was en route from Israel to Italy yesterday or the day before, it's getting a little hazy now, said that he thinks that they'll probably move in that direction, but right now they're going to stay in an observational standpoint. Kimberly?
All right, John, thank you. Okay, Dana, where do we stand?
Well, I think on the leaks portion of this, that it is dangerous if you have an investigation that's ongoing and you reveal evidence too early. For example, some of the photographs that were put forward included pictures of the bolts that were used. So you could conceivably trace that back, and people who are responsible could cover their tracks if they think that they're about to get made because of the investigation. That said, it is possible that you could go through an investigation like this and find out that the leak was not necessarily meant to hurt President Trump or to hurt the UK investigation. This information was out there and available, and there could have been a miscommunication between the Brits and the Americans. But obviously, it should be investigated. I do also think, though, we have to remember that leakers are sometimes glamorized, okay? And that would include somebody like an Ed Snowden. So he becomes extremely famous, and he is just praised from certain quarters from all over the world. He's living the high life, even though he has to live in Russia. But he's with his girlfriend, and he's fairly free, but he gets all this attention. And I think that glamorizing leakers such as Ed Snowden and not actually holding them to account for this type of thing leads to others thinking that they could get away with it and not pay a consequence.
Okay. Greg, so where do we go from here in terms of our relationship? The UK obviously is upset. They're concerned about these leaks. This sort of puts the U.S. a little bit on its heels, but it could be an advantage to President Trump if it's played out right.
Well, I just came up with this phrase, loose lips sink ships.
Wow, original.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's going to catch on.
Get that from the Navy guys that are outside?
Yes.
Sink Brits.
Yes. So there you go. You need to keep England happy. It's basically our spouse in this world. It's the closest. It's the closest relationship that we have. So is this a big deal, and why? From an intelligence standpoint, I'm not sure because I don't know. It was 2 days later. The stuff was out there. But from a respect standpoint, it's a big deal. There's always a conflict here. America is the big fish, and countries bristle when we don't observe their boundaries. They know that we're the most powerful country in the world. We don't have to throw it in their face. They don't want to be the Robin to our Batman, even though they are the Robin to our Batman. But I think, countries also should worry a little less about the information leaks after an attack and about the acting on the information before the attack.
Exactly.
I think I would be more outraged. Preserve your outrage for what happens before.
Right. That's a great point.
Thank you.
Be more upset about what you missed to prevent it to begin with than the aftermath and saying, oh, we're upset now because you're, giving some information up. All right, Jesse, so what do we do to kind of mend this relationship? Obviously, the UK is upset. We know we have a leaking problem. But now I think this gives the president a platform to say, listen, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Whoever's behind it is going to have to be prosecuted. Enough is enough.
It's an interesting point. This plays right into the president's hand, why the leakers have now overplayed their hand. They're playing a very dangerous game now, and it feeds into his mantra about plugging these leaks and the fake news media and the enemy from within. I think it's one thing for a leaker to leak something that embarrasses the president or sets up maybe an obstruction of justice charge against the president, but it's a whole nother thing, and I don't know the motivation here, to leak something that damages our alliance or embarrasses an ally or destroys the trust of a great ally or even potentially jeopardizes our national security. So, President Obama
they want
wasn't
the president to get the blame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know I don't really know the motivation, but it doesn't make the United States look trustworthy. So someone has an agenda. It's either the holdover Democrats that are trying to destroy the Trump presidency from within. It's either bureaucrats or Republicans in there that never liked President Trump that are trying to wage political warfare against him. Or it's just fake news stuff. There's a lot of anonymous sources out there. Who's telling these reporters these things? Are there actual administration officials saying these things? Where are they getting the information?
Well, no, but it seems credible if the UK is upset about it.
This one seems credible, but I think in the broad scheme of things, a lot of this other stuff comes out in the middle of nowhere. So they have to probably initiate some sort of task force, make an example out of something.
But it's on this president's watch. That's the problem. It's why he's upset, and justifiably the UK is upset. Something has to be done about it. This doesn't look good for the United States, period.
I agree. I think this Leakapalooza, which is what I like to call it, we're at 120 some odd days into the Trump Leakapalooza, and I think it looks really bad for the United States. But here's the thing. I don't think you can blame the journalist who's getting this information, reporting it responsibly. And a lot of times journalists, we saw last week where they said, we're not going to reveal the city. We're just going to reveal the information pertaining to the leak. You've got to deal with the leakers. And at the end of the day, all of these leakers report to one person, Donald J. Trump. He is the head of this government. And for 130 some odd days, he's been talking about getting the leakers. And guess what? They're still leaking.
Well, when the government's so big, it's hard to really find these guys.
Well, and also, I think also this leak, however it got out, I don't think that it was necessarily intended to specifically hurt President Trump. The other ones certainly were. So maybe they'll find that it's the same person. I don't know. But I also think that our relationship is so good, and the president was able today to have face-to-face diplomacy and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to fix this. And by 6 o'clock tonight, when Bret Baier was doing special report, he had breaking news alert. Okay, just found out that the Brits now have said, okay, no problem, we're going to start sharing intelligence again. So the stoppage of intel sharing lasted about 6 hours. So if you got in a fight with your husband or your wife, 6 hours later, you can actually, if you have a good enough relationship, you can put it behind.
This was, in a relationship, a sulk.
As my mother would say, you never let the sun go down in your anger if you're in a marriage.
Yes, that is so
And so we have amended the marriage.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I do think, all leaks are different. Whether this is a big, falls under the umbrella of these other leaks, I think this is, leaks never go away because humans can't shut up, and they always use information and gossip as tools to bond. So an officer might go to the press because it creates an alliance. And so this is why it's so hard in every business, including our own. We can't control what's being said. No one can. That's why I think this leak is on a different path and a different lane than these other ones. And I think that the real story is the relationship, how to keep the relationship strong,
well, that's
especially when you've been together for a long time. It gets the 7-year itch and all that other stuff.
We can't deal with your problems tonight, but thank you.
There is a similarity here, though. A lot of these leaks have created problems with our allies. Look at the transcripts.
Right.
Australia, Mexico, the Philippines,
good point.
Israel.
Yeah.
That's the common denominator here, that
Jesse,
a lot of these leaks are
point.
destroying the relationships between all of our good allies.
Which is why Donald Trump's got to get to the bottom of it. It's not a task force. He's got to say he's supposed to be the art of the deal, supposed to be this amazing businessman. Walk in there, you're the CEO of this company, fix the problem and stop complaining about it.
But the problem is it's not an exact replica in terms of a model of the private sector. He's dealing
That's
with...
what he ran on, Kim.
But the reality of the situation is he has people that are in there that are career people who have been appointed to positions that you're not able to fire. I mean, just look at the VA. I mean, what a mess that is. So the problem is he's stuck with that. They're there. They know that. Yeah. He kind of can't touch them. And so that's a problem. And then you have people disseminating information with lack of veracity, not even a goal objective here. And so then what do? He's now the guy who's on the watch. He's the team captain.
But that's what happens when you have nobody in your White House that's ever worked in the White House before.
You know what? The minute Trump
he has
starts
to have
firing,
loyal, trustworthy people in with him. Otherwise, it's going to continue to happen.
And the minute Trump starts firing the leakers, you're going to start calling them whistleblowers. And they need protection.
I think we should get the leakers. I just don't think he has the capability to find them.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
Bring in an outside agency. There are ways.
Jesse's on it.
I'm got this. I'm very worried.
It was the battle in Bozeman, the melee in Montana. House GOP candidate Greg Gianforte has been cited for misdemeanor assault after attacking a reporter, Ben Jacobs, who had put a recorder up to his face and started asking questions. Double G said not right now, but Jacobs persisted. Sounds like Jesse. What happened? What happened next? Alert your ears.
You were waiting to make your decision about healthcare until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what you thought.
We'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
Speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Jesus. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
You'd like me to get the hell out there, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
So it sounds kind of bad. How bad? The sheriff's office said there's probable cause to issue a citation, but the injuries didn't meet felony assault. So normally you'd blame the GOP candidate for his actions. That's what adults do. We assign blame to those responsible. We're not babies or Belgians. But the media, you know who they're going to blame. Rhymes with Trump.
A guy assaults a reporter, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising in an age of Trump, where he calls the press enemy of the people. These reckless words have consequences.
There is a cost to continually berating the media. You create an atmosphere in which these people are not treated like human beings. And although I'm sure the president did not intend for this particular candidate to do this, that is the end effect when you begin behaving that way. The fish rots from the head. The tone of the politics of the country is set by the president of the United States.
What does Donald Trump have anything to do with what this candidate did? Let's hold this candidate for responsible.
They're the fake people back there. They're horrible people. They're the enemy of the American people. If you think that that doesn't have anything to do with it, then you are sadly mistaken, my friend.
He puts the Don in donkey. Now, what's funny, using their logic, they could now be blamed if anyone attacked President Trump. They've gone full-blown THD, Trump hysteria disorder. Obviously, GG did wrong. He lost his temper, and you don't throw people to the ground, including even reporters. But you also don't blame Trump. He can't be at fault for everything. Oh, my God, my soup is cold. Blame Trump. Holy crap, I have a zit. Blame Trump. Oh, no, I'm getting fat. It's Trump's fault. By the way, that last one is real. Barbra Streisand once said the Trump presidency made her gain weight. Then Lena Dunham said it caused her to lose weight. Make up your minds, you bunch of babies. Fact is, you can blame Trump for anything, including breaking some guy's glasses in Montana, while Trump's thousands of miles away in Brussels. You got to say, that's what I call reach. All right, Jesse, couldn't we blame all the disruptions in college on the left-wing liberal media, on CNN, on MSNBC? We could just blame away.
I'd like to do that, as a matter of fact. That's what I like to do.
Why don't you try?
Think about it. I mean, the media has called Trump Hitler for a year and said that he needs to be actively resisted. And then what happened? Madonna said she wants to blow up the White House. De Niro said he wants to punch the president. And the left wing's been running wild, burning things down. A woman the other day actually tried to run her congressman off the road because he voted to repeal Obamacare. Was that the media's fault? No. So Trump says fake news, and now all of a sudden some guy gets in trouble in Montana. Listen, I feel sorry for the victim. And I do want to say, I know this kind of is me going out on a limb, beating up reporters is not the right thing to do. If Jesse Waters knows that, I think it's true.
You really have grown.
I'm not sure.
Such maturation here. It's unbelievable.
It's only been a month.
It might not last.
Can I just say this one thing? If somebody broke my glasses, that would be a situation. I think.
Well, your glasses are quite attractive and probably also expensive.
Probably the nerdiest thing you could probably say.
I mean,
about your glasses being broken.
But in all seriousness,
that's what I was going to prevent you from saying.
That is nerdist. That is nerdist. Everybody here.
I already said I feel sorry for the guy who didn't deserve it. But come on.
If Gigi had broken my glasses, Gigi would have a really bad black eye.
Anybody notice anyone else who has GG initials? Or
no, that's the other issue, Kimberly. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, GG, but that name has been harmed by this. I'm a practitioner of nonviolence. So
are you trying to create a case for yourself?
Yes, I am. Well, Kimberly, now that you started talking.
Perfect. I'm KG, by the way.
KG, and you are KG. So the media is acting like this is a huge outrage. We kind of know that this guy lost his temper. You see that every day in life. It just so happens it's a Republican and a reporter. So, oh my God, the world is ending. Stop huffing. She's huffing.
Shaking my head at you.
She's shaking. She's like this.
I agree with Dana's head shake.
I don't even have to say anything.
It spoke volume.
Well, you know what I'm saying is that people lose their temper. The guy, all the time. It's just that the two variables involved make it a big deal.
I think we're missing the story here. The real reason why the media is blaming Donald Trump is because he did the robocall for this for Gianforte, and he didn't denounce him.
Yeah.
Well, but listen, he's far away right now. He doesn't have time for all these long-distance calls and denouncements. But on a serious note, really, what does this have to do with President Trump? Anything that happens, they want to try and attribute it and say that it's his fault and castigate him for it. Was this wrong? What happened? Absolutely. Talk about choking. Why did this guy do this when he was doing well and then he just loses it?
Yep.
Obviously, he's got some kind of problem. Tell it like it is.
Exactly.
Why you don't just body slam, break glasses? I mean, it's nonsense. I think you get away with this, not even in second grade.
Yeah.
Okay, in the playground. But he's doing this. It's conduct unbecoming. So then it's a question as in terms of whether or not, he's suitable to be able to serve. People make mistakes. They have to. I get it. Believe me, people make mistakes. But nevertheless, in terms of just blowing this completely out of proportion to say that it lands on the steps of the Oval and that this is the fault of Donald Trump. Wow, that is such a reach.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Dana, you can't agree with that guy in that morning show. Morning Steve. What's it called? Morning Steve. It's that guy Steve with the funny hair. But I mean, you have to admit that the media is so into this anti-Trump world.
Oh, I agree with that.
They've fallen into this absurd
world. That's not what I was shaking my head about. I think that this guy, if you are running to be a representative of our democracy and you can't answer a question about the Congressional Budget Office without losing your temper and assaulting somebody and throwing them to the ground, you've got a serious problem. But blaming President Trump for it would be like saying any Democrat that cheated on their spouse that was a direct result because of what Bill Clinton did.
I say that.
Hillary Clinton in the White House.
I've heard that.
And
I've made that exact point.
Exactly. And then the whole point about blaming presidents. Remember the whole hashtag Thanks Obama?
Yes.
Like, it became like a joke. So any president's going to get the blame about anything. Obama, he blamed President Bush for like 4 years and it became a big joke. But here's the worst part about this story for me. Their spokesperson, the spokesperson for the candidate, lied about what happened and put out a statement saying something completely that didn't happen.
You blame the liberal
on
media.
paper. They put it out there, and they actually, there's eyewitnesses. They happen to work for Fox News. And Alicia Acuna says, this is what I saw happen. She has 3 other witnesses. And this is what I think is really bad. You think that you can actually lie about what happened and get away with it? Now, he's probably going to win tonight. Fine. Here comes another winner to Washington, D.C.
Well, I mean, if you beat up a reporter in Montana, your poll numbers might go up.
Well, that's exactly, it could be what happened. But
Not that I think that's okay.
In the words of Donald Trump, he's a loser. He beats up.
He should
breaks
call him a
glasses
loser.
of journalists.
Punching down.
Loser.
All right. Well, I think, you know what? Let's not descend to the level of name callers.
Donald Trump?
No. Let's just anybody in particular. All right. Up next. President Trump.
At NATO's headquarters in Brussels today, Mr. Trump showed no signs of changing his position.
NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States. 2% is the bare minimum for confronting today's very real and very vicious threats.
Well, take a look at how some in the media reacted to that.
The president lecturing the NATO allies. He was very angry at that, and it became clear during the course of his scolding.
President Trump took the opportunity of a NATO summit to publicly berate fellow members for not living up to their defense spending commitment. He also alluded to allies who, quote, owe massive amounts of money from past years, which seems to echo his previous misunderstandings that this is all about back dues.
President Trump in Brussels delivering a public shaming to the veteran leaders there. It was painful to watch. This was his debut at NATO, and they were really angry.
What do you make of that, Greg?
They should all shut up. Seriously, I mean, we can't be strong with Europeans because Europeans are so much more superior to these roughneck Americans. They're sophisticated. They drink tea. In places and espresso. By the way, Trump, he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's a salesman. You start with an extreme position, and then you ask for the moon, and you get something in return. And he's going to get something in return because he asked the question. He disrupts. He creates a debate. But at the end of all this, they end up shaking hands, and maybe he gets the ball moved closer to us.
Well, he's actually already, Kimberly, been able to get, many of the countries have said that they are going to pledge. And so I guess he could have been a little bit more criticize in private and maybe praise in public and say, I've already been able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, but ultimately, we're about the objective and achieving the goal at the end. And so this is something you had to call them out because they got a little bit publicly shamed. Then they said, okay, this is awkward. We better make sure and save face. It's a little bit of a brash style, but it is producing results. And by the way, why don't people pay up? I mean, we're expected to pay rent in apartments and pay for gas we put in our car. You know, if they want military protection and the benefit of working with the United States, they need to pay the bill, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. It really does. You can't just sit there and complain and whine about stuff when you're not even like paying your dues. It used to really bug me in my Flamingo Club.
So there was a complaint.
There
was another complaint from mostly on the left, but even Charles Krauthammer earlier tonight on Martha's show, the story talked about how he didn't say the words in Article 5 that an attack on one is an attack on all. Sean Spicer, the press secretary, later came out and said, well, that's what the whole event was about, so why did we even need to say that? Is that nitpicking?
It could be. You might blame speechwriters for something like that. If that's something you're supposed to say as the commander-in-chief when you address NATO and make the NATO allies feel a little bit better, maybe he should have said that. I think it's understood. I think it's obviously important for NATO to start brushing up. I remember we had NATO deployed in Afghanistan for a little while, and they were having problems communicating. Different countries had different rules of engagement. There was air-to-air communication issues, air-to-ground communications. Some countries weren't even getting off into the air because they didn't want to do certain air raids over certain areas. So
some didn't have uniforms.
Some didn't have the right uniforms. Some didn't have the right equipment. So it's clear that the president is making these NATO allies take ownership and be stakeholders in their own national defense, and I think that's a positive thing.
Some of those countries lost more soldiers than we did.
Yeah, right, and saving taxpayers in America money.
That's number one. Number two, NATO was created because the United States wanted to counterbalance USSR. So we created NATO, and so because we are the creators of said thing, we have a responsibility to maintain it. On the campaign trail, he said he wanted to get rid of it. It's awful. It's stupid. Now he's like, I'm okay with it, but you need to be. But wait a minute. This is about diplomacy. Diplomacy is not the Celebrity Apprentice. Diplomacy requires you to be behind the scenes, making deals, projecting posture in public.
Well, the diplomacy
what we saw there was not
effective because now these nations are starting
that was embarrassing. That was not effective.
So you don't like his style, but you have to like his
because it made America look bad.
No, it made America look effective and strong.
I think it makes
and it made America look like America
first. First of all, the president flip-flopped on his position, number one.
No, he stayed out of position so he could bring them to the middle. That's what a salesman does. Richard,
clearly you guys
you elected a dog and you wanted a cat.
This is a Celebrity Apprentice. You're fired.
This is diplomacy. This is not for sale. This is not a New York real estate.
You know what? For these Europeans,
he's not a guy that has flowery semantics, but he's putting cash in the register.
I do hope that President Trump gave Erdogan of Turkey the side eye after that stunt in Washington, D.C.
Turkey from capital. He had a not so subtle message for his predecessor.
If there are disruptions in these countries, if there's conflict, if there's bad governance, if there's war, if there's poverty, in this new world that we live in, we can't isolate ourselves. We can't hide behind a wall.
He's back, KG. He's back.
Music.
Have you had enough or not?
Oh, no, roll the side again, please. I want to hear it. Of course he's going to say that. He really is, fundamentally opposed to pretty much everything that President Trump ran on and now is trying to embark in his presidency to support in terms of his policies and positions. So, of course, he's going to say, I don't want the wall, tear down any kind of borders or walls. This is what really divides us. That's his message. So he's being consistent with his core principles, which are diametrically opposed to President Trump.
He's also being consistent by continuing to violate traditional post-presidency etiquette about criticizing your predecessor. What do you think about that?
Well, I've always wondered how he was actually going to do it because he is very young to be a former president. Yeah. He's got a long life ahead of him. He's got a party that he feels responsible for all of the losses across the country. Yeah. He has to figure out a way to try to help them because when President Trump beat Hillary Clinton, now the Democrats are in the wilderness, so they don't have anybody. And there's a really interesting balance between allowing your successor the space he needs in order to be commander-in-chief and do it in his way, and trying to protect your legacy. I'm not exactly sure where President Obama is going to come down on that, but it looks like he'll be a lot more active than at least George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush were.
Oh, he's doing a lot of legacy protecting these days, Greg. He says we can't hide when there's conflict behind walls. He hid pretty prominently during the Syrian civil war and during that crisis. He didn't want to get his hands dirty at all.
Well, what's interesting about this is it's not a strong statement. It's just kind of a casual, mild statement, but it's also deliberately misinterpreting the issue. No one is building a wall to hide. It's kind of a college freshman comment to make. Walls if walls are made so you can hide behind them. Smart guy, President Obama, you should live outside because we all live within walls. If a wall implies you're a coward, President Obama should live on the street. Prove that we don't need walls because walls are the most practical thing on the planet. They protect you. That's the wall. No, the wall isn't for hiding. It is for protecting.
There's a wall around his new house in D.C., Richard.
There really isn't a wall around his house.
There's a very tall wall.
I bet you live within walls,
We've
Richard.
Seen it. We've seen it.
We've seen it all over the internet.
This is ridiculous. Here's the thing. Where I actually agree with Kimberly on the point that that the Trump agenda and the Obama agenda are diametrically opposed. Right. right? We could all agree there. But we could also agree that building a wall on our southern border is not only not cost effective, but it's rather stupid.
But it's not hiding. It ain't
right?
hiding.
And that's why Congress will fund
opposite
it.
of hiding.
Why is it stupid to protect the country?
It has nothing to do with, because this argument that all these terrorists are running across the Mexican border is absurd.
No one said terrorists. There's MS-13 gang members coming across. There's
And
coyotes
MSNBC.
and drug traffickers coming across. There's a lot of dangerous people coming across.
But let's talk.
that are
So we
stealing American
can
jobs
talk
as well.
about this MS-13 because I love when the Attorney General brings up this MS-13 thing. Like if we solve MS-13, we'll solve all the drug problems in America. First, we've got to realize that drugs are a public health issue and not a criminal justice issue. If we could deal with folks getting addicted to drugs, if they stop getting addicted, MS-13 would be irrelevant. But we won't fund the NIH. We will gut the Affordable Care Act. We will gut all the programs that help those who are addicted to drugs. And then we say we're going to solve the drug problem by going after the gangsters. That doesn't make any sense.
Sorry for wanting to go after the gangsters. I'd rather not let
Just
the gangsters
stop the people
in the
buying
country
the drugs
before they come in
by
and start
healing
distributing
them.
to it. Kimberly,
Yes.
you've dealt with MS-13
I
gang
certainly
members.
have.
Walls would be pretty effective, not only keeping them from coming into the country, but then locking them up once we cuff them.
Well, walls are part and secure borders are part of the framework to help protect and for public safety. Part of the equation, of course, is drug trafficking, where these cartels tend to revel in that and try to embrace their own free market in terms of like drug trafficking. But there's also weapons. There's also just the criminality in terms of just like trying to build their framework and their core group and jump people into gangs and have them commit crimes. So violence is at the core of it, and it's not just isolated to drug trafficking. That's the reality of the situation. So, by the way, no problem with Sessions and the rest of the DOJ saying, let's get rid of MS-13 and other violent gangs that are plaguing our urban communities and centers. That's the beginning of it. Bottom line is enforce the immigration laws that are on the books.
The White House is allegedly planning to strengthen its legal and rapid response team to fight back against leakers and ongoing investigation. This is a similar move to what President Clinton did when he was embroiled in a deluge of scandals. Dana.
Well, it's something that I think I recommended this a couple months ago, that they should wall it off and have somebody that is the point person, that is the person that answers questions about Russia investigations and the special counsel, because it allows them, it frees them up to be able to talk about jobs, the economy, the health care bill, tax reform, or foreign policy, which will be very important. Interestingly, though, when Bill Clinton did it, he had Lanny Davis. Lanny Davis is one of these D.C. insider-type lawyers, and he also knew all the press because he was friends with all of them. They all lived together in Northwest D.C. So I actually think that it was a little easier for the Clintons than it's going to be for President Trump.
And the thing here is I agree with you. I think he should do this a long time ago. This is a smart move by the president, right? And I think what you do is you sort of create two tracks. You create the agenda track, what's happening, what you need to move. Mm-hmm. And on the other track, you have dealing with all this scandal stuff. What do you think about it, Greg?
Yeah, I think he needs help. You know, he's dealing with a media and a party that's working together. The Trump presidency is like that married couple that lives above you that's always arguing really loudly. It sounds crazy, it's scary, but they're still together.
That doesn't sound very happy.
For now.
KJ.
For now.
So
Forever.
this is true. Yeah, it's true. Not about the married couple. But, yeah, he needs to have his own rapid response team. He needs to have crisis communication. He should have had it right away from the beginning. He has to have the people that he trusts, that are most loyal to him, that he knows are in for him, like blood in, blood out, and are going to be able to get control of this situation. He didn't have it. He was operating at a disadvantage from day one after he was, sworn in and the inauguration. But it's not too late. He can turn this around. And I think because of the situation with the way the media and et cetera, with the whole Russian collusion, investigation, this has now forced the hand in terms of now we've got to deal with this. Let's put a team in place. I think he has some very, very good people that he is going to roll out on this that are really going to shut this down. So the sooner, the better.
I concur.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a day late and a dollar short, like you said. Reince Priebus, very smart guy, did a great job at the RNC. Very nice person, but obviously needs to take some responsibility for the chaos here. And, not only rapid response, but better surrogates. Maybe triple the amount of surrogates they're using. Maybe use more lawyers. Maybe the lawyers need to start circling the wagons and get these, but also get on the same page as the House and the Senate.
But don't you think the leadership
someone's going to
stops
stick a
with the
microphone
president?
and ask something about something that happened in the Trump
it.
White House,
You
and the
just blame
senator, the
Rome-
congressman
you
has
just
no
blame-
idea what they're
you
talking
just blame
about.
Mr. Priebus for a problem that exists at the top. The president cannot control his White House, period.
Well, the
Listen,
organization.
it's very
chief of
chaotic,
staff should
obviously,
be
but they're being
controlling it.
inundated with
Just
people that are
like
trying to impeach
immigration,
themselves.
We're going to-
travel.
we're
Can I just say one thing? That this strategy will only be as effective as President Trump respects it. Because if he's going to go to the step of putting this in place, then that means that like he hasn't been tweeting this past week. It's been beneficial to him, and I think he should trust these new people and give them the space they need with no Twitter.
Hashtag cosign.
Wait till he comes back Saturday.
A quick break, and when we come back, one of us isn't going to be here.
Oh.
Kimberly's got to run to another studio to host Hannity tonight. She'll have the latest details on the Montana special election, so tune in at 10 p.m. Eastern. Goodbye, KG. Have a great show. One more thing.